total out of pocket, around 600,000. And if you count losses with including everything else, I would say it would be around 2 million total.
Hi, I'm Genevieve, founder of Franchise Reality Check, where we dig beneath the franchise sales pitch to help prospective franchisees make informed investment decisions. Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is unlike any I've done before. One of the biggest challenges in franchising is that we rarely get to hear directly from franchisees after they sign their agreement. Some are restricted by settlement agreements or non-disparagement clauses. Others worry about legal action, and many more simply want to put the experience behind them. Today's guest made a different decision. Kay is a former Home Franchise Concepts franchisee who chose to publicly share her experience after operating kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up franchises. Through her YouTube channel, Inside the Franchise Experience, and her LinkedIn posts, she has documented what she believes happened during her journey from prospective franchisee to franchise owner, and ultimately to someone questioning the entire system she invested in. Before today's interview, Kay shared hundreds of pages of documents with me, including franchise disclosure documents, internal correspondence, outlet analysis, financial information, and the research she's assembled over the past several years. Throughout this conversation, we'll refer to many of those documents as we walk through her experience and discuss why she believes prospective franchisees should look beyond the franchise sales process before making an investment. As always, this conversation reflects Kay's personal experience, opinions, and conclusions. My role isn't to tell you what to think. My role is to ask questions, examine the evidence, and help you understand the kinds of questions every prospective franchisee should be asking before they sign on the dotted line. Kay, thank you for joining me and welcome to Franchise Reality Check.
Thank you for having me.
I kind of know you from LinkedIn and I've watched you on YouTube for a little bit here over the last couple of months, I think. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your story. So before you got into franchising, so tell me about Kay before franchising.
My background, I had a DDS, so I am a dentist, but I didn't have my degree from the US. I tried to get the license in the US, but it was going to cost me a lot of money to go back to school for another 2 years. So I decided to start something different. So I worked for a while as a medical interpreter. And then after I got married, I became also a real estate agent. And so I had some experience with real estate and homes. My husband is a software engineer. He has been working as a software engineer for 25 years. So he had already accumulated all of retirement. He always put the maximum for retirement all these years. And then we decided it's time to start thinking of what kind of investment we can do to transition from corporate jobs and become business owners. That's when we started looking at ideas, and then we knew about kitchen tune-up.
So that transition, that's kind of what attracted you to the idea of owning a business, was kind of getting out of that corporate 9-to-5 drag and owning your own business.
Yes. And my husband was planning to keep his job. So we were thinking of something that I can do by myself. That's what attracted me into franchising, because franchising supposedly is going to be, you're not going to start from scratch. There should be a system. You're no experience needed based on their advertisement, a turnkey system, all of that. So that was one of the main reasons we started looking into franchising.
Yeah, it's definitely touted as the safer path in business. As you've discovered, it doesn't always actually turn out that way. So why did you choose Home Franchise Concepts in particular? What attracted you to them as a franchisor?
Well, actually, I didn't know anything about kitchen tune-up. I was looking in general about other kinds of businesses. I was going to start a partnership with another person. It was not a franchise, but it was going to be a daycare. And she is the one who has the license. So we were going to do a partnership. But then she backed out. And then I started thinking, I already invested a lot of time thinking about that subject. I don't know anything about daycares. So I was thinking maybe a franchise daycare. And I found one. I was really planning to join, and they were not registered in Minnesota because Minnesota is a registered state. So I was waiting for the registration to happen. And then I saw a kitchen tune-up just registered in Minnesota. I was interested, what is this kitchen tune-up? And then I started reading about it. That's how I knew about it. And then in their website, they were mentioning that they just got acquired by JM Family Enterprise. Under JM Family is the parent company, the ultimate parent, and then under it is HFC, Home Franchise Concepts, and then Kitchen Tune-Up. So they were talking about how they're going to be backing this company because they are an $18 billion company, and how they're going to be backing this franchise. That was one of the things that attracted us to it, because we were thinking, oh, this is a really big company. We care about technology, and they were saying we're going to back the technology. Kitchen Tune-Up was a very small franchise, South Dakota franchise. It's not that famous, but having that backing from JM Family, it was like 8 months in from after the acquisition when we started reading about it. And that's how we got interested in.
It's almost like this, this big company, JM Family, they've got all this money. So surely they did all their due diligence into kitchen tune-up. So surely it must be a good opportunity for franchisees to get into if they're backed with so much money.
Yeah, and they mentioned that in their own website. They have an article about the acquisition and how they're going to back it from technology and the success of the franchisees, because they are also a Toyota dealership in the Southeast. And they were comparing it to how they take care of their dealers. They're going to take care of their franchisees. So they showed that they have the experience and they have the money, and they're going to back everybody to have a successful business.
Yeah, so definitely made you feel very comfortable in your decision to move forward.
Yeah. And because also the reason I liked the idea of the kitchen remodeling business is because I was in real estate. So I had some experience about remodels and values of things. It's not that much, but they also said we're going to have a comprehensive training. You don't need any experience. It's a turnkey system. We're going to help you with everything. So we believed that. And that was the reason we joined. And also they said that they have one of the benefits, also the purchasing power, because they're going to be negotiating prices for the whole group. We're going to have an advantage compared to other small contractors, which we found out at the end, we don't have that benefit at all. They are the ones who's having the benefit of the purchasing power.
So the whole pre-sale experience was just kind of led you to be comfortable and calm in your decision, and like, this is the direction we're going to go with this franchisor and kitchen tune-up.
So the sale process itself, it was all positive. I do very good search online. I've searched for hours about kitchen tune-up, but you don't find any negative reviews about franchises. So you wouldn't know. You search, everything is positive. And I didn't know about franchises that they have NDAs. People cannot say any negative things about them. So when I saw there's no negative comments anywhere, so that was positive too. And we had also, of course, validation calls with some of the owners. And we also tried to call the former franchisees that were listed in the FDD, but the phone numbers were either disconnected or it goes to a kitchen tune-up voicemail. So we were not able to connect with any former franchisee. But we didn't think about it. We thought maybe those previous owners didn't want to connect with anybody. So they disconnected their phone numbers. And we just continued with it. And we started thinking about joining only with the kitchen tune-up. But then they tried to convince us it's better to buy also bath tune-up at the same time, because they had discounts. If you buy now, you're going to get this discount. If you buy 2 territories now, it's going to be cheaper than you buy it later. So we, based on the validation calls and the people we talked to, they all started the same, most of them, they started the same way. They had multiple territories and the 2 brands. So we did the same. So we signed up from the beginning for 2 territories of kitchen and 2 of bath. They also told us that the bath tune-up, if you buy it now, we're going to let you start after a year. But at least you can lock in your price now. So we did that. We're talking with the other owners too. Most of them, they were still also like a year or 2 into it. I would say they were still in the honeymoon phase. thinking things are going to work. We're still investing into the business. And they would talk about it all positively. So we were encouraged based on all of those representations that everything is good. And we moved forward with it.
Do you feel like, based on what you know now, that maybe those franchisees that you spoke to in their honeymoon phase were maybe specifically chosen to talk to you, maybe curated by the franchisor to talk to you?
I heard from some franchise, I never volunteered to do one, but I heard other owners that I know that they have like a signing up, you sign up, say that you want to do it. And I know one of the owners who signed up multiple times, but they never let her in. So there is definitely a picking and choosing based on the attitude of the franchisee with them, if they are satisfied or not. I never did any validation call because I was not. I had a lot of things I'm not happy about. I didn't want to even talk about it, and I knew they're not going to pick me.
Right. Yeah. If they know that if they know you're going to tell the truth or say something negative, whether truthful or not, you're not going to be a validator. Did you ever think, when you started this process, that you might be publicly discussing this whole experience in the future?
No, never crossed my mind. Actually, I was at the beginning, I was very convinced about it. And I even talked to a lot of people about it. It's a great idea. You're starting the franchise, you're going to get the support, you're going to get all the training and everything. We started realizing most of the promises were not up to what they said they're going to be. For example, they said we're going to have a comprehensive training. When we started the training, we found out most of the technical stuff, they didn't teach us anything about it. We are a kitchen remodeling business, for example, but they wouldn't tell us or give us a program to do kitchen design, which is the main thing about kitchen remodel. They would say, no, you just hire it, you give it to us, and we have designers. They're going to do the design for you. And it goes from there. You don't need to know all the details because we want you to run the business. We don't want you to work on the business, which doesn't make any sense. Because I have to understand all aspects of the business to be able to hire people, to be able to sell, or to be able to answer questions for the customers themselves. I have to, I'm not going to do the installs, but I should understand the concept of the install. What is the right install? What's the wrong install? So I can evaluate things. So I had to do a lot of learning myself for most of the basic items of the franchise. That's when I realized we didn't get the training promised. And we didn't, support doesn't work because the support is not about the technical issues that we have. The people who are in the home office, they never ran a business. They don't know these details. So the answers or the questions we ask, we don't get the answer for. We would get answers from other franchisees, but not from the home office.
If not from the one place that should have had all the answers because they sold you a turnkey, ready to go, plug and play business.
Yeah. Like, for example, the cabinet painting, the training for cabinet painting, they told us, oh, you just take the cabinet doors to an auto body shop and ask them to paint it for you. We said, are you joking? They said, no, seriously, just try it. They are in South Dakota, and maybe South Dakota, a very tiny city in Aberdeen, the city that they're in, they have maybe one or two auto body shops. They don't have jobs. Yeah, they would take it, but not in the twin cities and big cities. JM family themselves, if I go to one of their dealerships or where they do auto body shops, and I would tell them, they would laugh. That was the training we got about cabinet painting. And then when we had to start the business, we got the first job, we had to go ask other owners, how did you do painting? And that's how we learned how to do painting based on the experience of other franchises. So joining for franchise that didn't teach us anything, we had to do everything ourselves, was a waste of time and waste of money. We had to learn by trial and error. So our first painting job we called this owner who told us his way of doing it. He was very helpful. We followed what he told us. 3 months later, the customer called. She said, oh, the paint is cracking. We had to take all the doors, resand them, do the whole job again. with new products. We changed, so we learned by trial and error. The products he used in the state he works in works for him. It didn't work for us. Different, I don't know what was the difference between us and him, but it didn't work out. And then we had to do our own search online and see how people are doing it, what's the best product to use. And that's how we learned. So we had to pay for jobs twice sometimes to fix it and learn from it for the next job.
So that probably doesn't do anything for your customer service. I mean, if you fix it, yeah, but the fact that the customer has to sit there while you do it again because it wasn't done right the first time.
Yeah, we were just lucky. She was a very good customer. I mean, customers, sometimes they're hard. Some people are really nice. So she was one of the nice customers. She didn't complain about, she even gave us a 5-star review after that.
So there was no standard operating procedures, no like training manual that they gave you that says this is how you handle a kitchen or a bath remodel.
They would give just very basic information that you can get anywhere online. It's not something really specific, technical, like with the refacing, for example. Refacing, you change the doors of the cabinets. So it has a lot of calculation, a lot of details about hinges. You have to learn about what kind of hinges, when to use which hinge, and all of these technical details. They would just tell us, hey, go look in this document. It doesn't have the information I want. I would have to go dig deeper online. I had to do a lot of studying myself. I spent hours and hours every day just studying to master the things I'm doing, to understand every aspect of it. And I'm a dentist. I mean, technical things in dentistry made me learn, and you have to dig deeper in everything and understand the concept to be able to calculate things correctly. So it was all self-taught, basically. So we were paying for a franchise that didn't give us anything.
Yeah, and I'm looking in the FTD here, and they do have training fee in here, and then additional training fees of like $500 to $1,000 a day, plus travel and expenses.
We went there to South Dakota for training. It was very basic. Like, as I told you, for the cabinet painting was go to an auto body shop. Refacing, they showed us how to put one strip of veneer, which is not what we're going to learn. It's nothing. We were thinking we're going to really go do hands-on training, understand basics, but it was not what we were expecting. And it was 1 week training, so it's not enough to do, we were doing kitchen remodels. It has plumbing, it has electrical, it has precise measurements. It has a lot of details to it. We had to learn it all by searching online, and sometimes paying for mistakes. We have to replace a cabinet, replace a door, replace things like that. And it's all in our cost, affecting our margins.
When you're in this training for your week in South Dakota and you hear, oh, you just take the cabinet doors to an auto body shop. When you're in that training and you hear this, did anything like alarm bells go off, red flag at that point, or like in your head, like, hey, that's kind of weird that we would take cabinet doors to an auto body shop for spray painting?
We told them at training at that time, we said, is this a joke? And they said, no, my husband really called like 3 auto body shops. He said, let me try, maybe it's going to work. They laughed at him. So, of course, nobody's going to do that.
I don't know anything about kitchen or bath tune-ups or painting, but I thought that this different kind of paint that they use to put on metal, cars than wood cabinet doors.
Yeah, but they were saying, okay, they're just going to spray it. So they're going to put the type of paint. I don't know, because I never went to that auto body shop. But yeah, they should be using different types of paint. They're not going to be even equipped to hang doors and spray them. It's a auto body shop. It was really laughable. But, when you are in the training, you already invested, you already paid. So you would think, okay, maybe just this aspect. We'll see. The most thing that we were thinking we're benefiting out of this was the purchasing power, because they kept telling us, it was in their website too when we purchased, you're going to have a purchasing power because we negotiate for the group. And they kept talking about this purchasing power all along, until actually I didn't know that we really don't have that purchasing power until, I would say, end of 2025. Just an example, we had a job with the painting a whole house. I hired a painter and I told him, go buy the paint from Sharon Williams under my account. So he went there to buy the paint and he called me. Said, why do you want me to buy under your account? I can get it cheaper. He is a one guy. He doesn't have the purchasing power. Small business, one person. He is the owner and the painter. How can he get a price better than me? And then I went to the store. They said, yeah, you have a national account. That's more expensive. If you do local account, you're going to get a better price. This is just a simple example. Imagine it with the cabinets and all of the other things that are more expensive.
So was that sort of thing disclosed to you in your FDD? So when you got your FDD before you signed your franchise agreement, what sort of due diligence did you do with the document itself? Now, obviously, now you know way more about a franchise disclosure document than you did then, and you're a deep researcher. So what kind of processes did you use to learn the FDD and the documentation?
So because we were new to the franchising itself, I didn't understand what to look for exactly regarding that in the FTD itself. But in their website, it was saying you're having this purchasing power. And now when I look at the FTD, I know it was mentioned that they're going to get rebates. Actually, they get 10% discounts and 10% rebates from our own purchases. And they take all of that. That 20% is taken. The rebates, they say from 1 to 10%, but discounts is 10%. So it can be a total of 20%. And that's from everything, not just from supplies. It can be also from marketing, any type of vendors we're using for any service. But I didn't understand it really. But there was also a statement in our FDD stating that as if the day this document, we have not collected any rebates from franchisee purchase. That gives you the illusion, yes, we have the right to take rebates, but we're not taking them. So we believe that. And because their website is saying we have the purchasing power. But I didn't notice that I noticed later on that in the same document, they were saying they have not collected any rebates. And then in their financial statements in that year, in the first quarter only, they already collected 300,000 just in rebates. So there was a discrepancy in their own FDD. And then the next year, FDD in 2022 FDD, it mentions that they collected in 2021 2 million. And they kept the same statement that they have not collected in 2022. 2022, they collected 2.6 million. So that discrepancy is, how can they explain it? Actually, that was one of the complaints that we did to the Attorney General of Minnesota. And he, the assigned deputy, also called them and asked them about it. We don't know what happened with that, but he called and because it was an obvious discrepancy in their FDD and they couldn't explain it to him. They told him, we're going to look into it. We don't know what happened after that.
So essentially, your cost of goods that you need, supplies, was elevated because of this 20% that was being kicked back to the franchisor, that they were saying, we reserve the right to do so, but we're not doing so, but they actually did, is what you're saying.
Yes. And that affects, I mean, with the remodeling business in general, usually the profits, if you search online with the kitchen remodels, I would say around 10 to 15% profit. If you're taking 20% from the material, we cannot compete in the market. So if we try to increase prices, we lose the job. If we keep the prices low, we don't make enough to make the business afloat. So it was not just that, also the other fees too was affecting the margins.
So you had mentioned that your prior experience as in real estate kind of helped you come to the conclusion that kitchen and bath remodeling franchise would be a good fit for you. Was there anything in the sales process where they maybe helped you along in coming to that conclusion? Like you mentioned earlier, they said that you didn't need any experience in this.
So just the fact that they said no experience required. As soon as we started digging into it, we found out that in Minnesota, we're required to have a builder license, a general contractor license. I can do a kitchen remodel as long as I'm not going to hire a sub plumber or electrician. But with the bathroom, you cannot because you have to have a permit. You cannot say it's a no experience needed. If I have to have a builder license, I have to have some kind of experience to be able to pass the test and get the license. This is in Minnesota. Other states, they have more requirements. I think California, you have to work for like 5 years under another general contractor first to be able to be licensed. And they wouldn't disclose all of that information. People would join in and then find out they cannot run the business because they don't have a license. And they cannot get the license. It's not like something you just apply and get it. It has education, it has a test. I was lucky I took the test and I passed it from the first time. So I got the license when we started the kitchen tune up. And I told Heidi Morrissey, she's the president. Actually, she was the daughter of the founder of Kitchen Tune Up, and she was the president of Kitchen Tune Up. And I told her, Minnesota requires a license. And you should be telling the other franchisees they have to have the license to run the business. They cannot bring an electrician or plumber without a license. She was shocked about it. She didn't know, but she didn't tell anybody that. So until today, a lot of people are running their businesses and they don't have licenses all over different states.
Did they not require a license in South Dakota?
I don't know about South Dakota, but I don't know. I never looked at South Dakota, but I know other states that have requirements. Some states have a requirement, like if you're doing a job that is over 10,000, you have to have a license. Some states, if it's over 40,000, you have to have a license. And most of our jobs are like 40,000 and more if it's a full kitchen remodel. So it should have been disclosed from the beginning. You should get the license before you even sign the agreement.
Yes, a franchisor should know all the ins and the outs of every jurisdiction that they're trying to put franchisees into when they're selling a franchise.
After we submitted the letter of demand, and one of the letter of demand items was about the no experience and the license requirements, the latest FDD of Bath Tuna, they added a big paragraph talking about the license. So they now trying to fix things based on our letter of demand.
So you get into this franchise, and so you start with one. You bought 2 kitchen tune-ups and 2 bath tune-ups. Is that correct?
Yes. So we started opening the 2 kitchen tune-ups, and then 6 months in, we started with the warehouse, hired installers. We had 2 installers, and we actually hired also an admin assistant. And then 6 months in, we decided maybe it's better to start the bath tuna because they gave us a year to start, but we decided to start it earlier because we already have employees and we can't fill their schedule and we don't want to give them less than 40 hours a week. So we decided to expedite and start the bath tune-up so we can fill their schedule. So we started the bath tune-up at, I think it was May 2022. So within, 6 months since we started.
Going back, you said a warehouse. Now, I've watched your YouTube videos, but tell the viewers about this warehouse. So why you're a brand new franchisee starting a kitchen tune-up franchise. Why the warehouse?
So when we started, they told us you can start from home. And I mentioned that I think until today that starting from home, it makes sense and for what they're saying. But you are doing a kitchen remodeling business. You're going to have deliveries through cabinets and you're going to have an 18-wheeler truck coming in. It was impossible. We knew from day one when we started, we actually got the warehouse at the beginning. After we did the validation call, we heard from some owners who did the same thing. And then we did the same thing like them. We started with the warehouse. And from the first delivery, we said, thank God we didn't listen to them. And we started with the warehouse because the first delivery we had was like 12 feet high. It was like a tower for hardware. It was a huge packaged, and it was not going to be possible to deliver that to our home. And no 18-wheeler is going to come to a residential area to deliver. Also, there is extra charge if you're going to have a lift gate. So when we got the warehouse, we got a warehouse with a dock. This way we can save in all shipments because we get a lot of shipments. For each like kitchen remodel, we get multiple shipments. It didn't make sense to have either having deliveries to home, or they were suggesting that you can have a storage unit, and start with that. Deliveries, they don't come in a specific time. They give you a window of 4 or 5 hours. You cannot just go to a storage area and wait there for 4 or 5 hours for the delivery to come. It didn't make any sense. So when we We started with, from the beginning, we said we'll just start with the warehouse. And also we didn't want the employees to go to our house to start the day. Having the warehouse, they come, we meet in the morning, talk about the jobs, and then they go to the sites.
So that was definitely an unintended expense because you didn't know you would need that. If they're sitting there and telling you that you can just do this from a residential, just do it from your house.
Because kitchen tune-up, when they started, they were doing only a tune-up, which is just doing some treatment for the wood to bring the luster of the wood back to the normal, how it was before. So this is a very small business. They just have some type of liquids that they need to use and take it with them. They don't need a big space. And they can do that from home. But doing a kitchen remodel and refacing projects, you need a warehouse to collect and gather all of the material that comes in. You need somebody to be there all the time. So whenever a delivery comes, you are not limited with time that you have to go somewhere else and wait for a delivery to come. So yeah, it was a big expense, but it was needs required. And we wouldn't be able to run the business without it.
Just another example of you guys having to learn this business model as you go on the fly, basically, and probably spending a significant amount of your available cash.
Yes. We started the business using the ROBs. So we used all the retirement accounts basically for starting the business. That was drained, I would say, in the first year and a half. And then we started needing to do some injections every once in a while because we cannot sustain it. And we have all the payments. We have to pay our employees. We have to pay the royalties. And then we started some injections every once in a while. We add some money to sustain it. And I never paid myself for 4 years.
I think that's the reality of being a franchisee that a lot of people don't consider. It's very possible and is probably the norm that a franchisee does not get paid from their own business, yet they're working in it day in, day out. And you're sitting there having to make sure that everybody else that you have under you is getting paid.
Yeah. We kept telling ourselves, this is the beginning. It's going to start sustaining itself. It's going to be better this year. Next year will be better. And year after year, it's just became worse. The more you sell, the more you lose.
So that's just kind of like an easy transition into just the financial reality of owning this franchise. So how much did you invest in this business?
I would say total out of pocket around 600,000. And if you count losses with including everything else, I would say it would be around 2 million total. We used to have 3 rental properties at one time. So we used all of those. Now we have sold those rental properties. We don't have any rental property anymore. We had to continue injecting money into the business. And when you already spent all of that money, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to stop here. What about all the money you spent? You keep thinking, no, it will work out. And when you hear them talking, it's not just the inducement at the beginning. There is continuous inducements. Within every meeting, they would say, okay, like the president herself, Heidi Morsi, we have multiple videos of her mentioning that each territory should be making, she would say 750 the first year. And then the second year, it would be $1 million for every territory. Those numbers are not real. And if you look at or talk to other owners, we have 4 territories, 2 kitchen and 2 bath. In the 2 years, we got $1 million in sale, but we're not making any money. But we're talking about $1 million for 4 territories. We run it as one business. We didn't run it separately, the kitchen and bath. We're making $1 million in sales, but there is no money. It doesn't make any sense.
So you had significant revenues, and that was not translating into profitability.
Some months would come and you would think, okay, we had good money coming in because we had good sales in a month or 2. But then another month comes that is low in sales, and then it will eat up everything. Because it's the continuous royalty that goes in with the minimums too. Regardless if you made sale or not, you're still paying minimum royalties. And other than that, there was in our FDD, the National Advertisement Fund was mentioning that it's going to be $500. It didn't say per territory. And when they started charging us, they charged it per territory. And when I started digging into it, I noticed that it was not saying per territory. So we were supposed to pay 500 only for franchise. So it would be 1,000, 500 for kitchen, 500 for bath. But in reality, we were paying 2,000. It was a mistake in the FDD. It was supposed to be $500 for the franchise. And they knew it was a mistake. And they continued charging us. People after us, they were paying less than us. And people before us are paying less than us. We were the only ones paying $2,000 a month just in National Advertisement Fund. So we paid $50,000 total in overcharge. That was breach of contract, basically, because they were taking money that is not based on the contract. And in the FDD, if you look at it, in the 2021 FDD in May, it mentions the national advertisement fund is $500. Under it, a technology fee, it says, I think it's $400 per territory. So the technology fee was mentioning it, but not the national advertisement fund. And people after us, they gave them an addendum. If they have 2 territories, they pay $250 for the second one. So they were paying less than us, and we were paying. That affected our business too. Imagine paying an extra 1,000 a month. That accumulates and affected our margins too.
So at what point in this 4-year process did you begin questioning the economics of the business model?
I would say in April 2025. That's when I started hearing about people we know who were already out of the business. One of the people who did the validation call with him, he was in the $1 Million Club, and he was always praised of being starting big. He had a warehouse, kitchen and bath, and he bankrupted. And then I was shocked when I heard that. And then I started questioning it, and we were already in the verge of collapse. That's when we decided to talk to Heidi. At that time, I didn't notice all of those items in the FDD. I just noticed that there is a systemic failure. There is a lot of people who are going out, and everybody who's going out, they are in a financial collapse or bankruptcy. So that's when we said, it's not going to work out. We have to stop. So we called Heidi Morrissey. We requested a call, and we told her we wanted to get out. She said, give her an offer. We told her at that time we were really at the verge of collapse. The only thing I had was $5,000 at the moment. We give you $5,000 that is out of this contract. And she said, no, you have to look at your contract and see how many months, how many years, and then give a reasonable offer based on that. That's when we realized we're not going to be able to get out. And then I started looking into their FDDs and studying them, basically. And you don't notice these things until you start comparing FDDs. And because if we are in the state of Minnesota, I was able to download all the FDDs since 2011 and started comparing it. That's how I found all of those changes. Like, for example, in our validation calls, nobody told us that we have a different structure than the people who we were doing the validation with, because they increased the minimum royalties from February 2021 FDD to May 2021 that we had by 58%. Like, they increased the minimum from $950 to $1,500 per territory. For us, it was 4 territories. So that was a big number for a minimum royalty a month. Also, National Advertisement Fund increased by 25%. I mean, all of these changes are material. They should have told us. When you talk to people, you want to know that these people are not paying the same amount. So if they are profitable, the structure is different. But I didn't know this until after April 2025.
And so did you do this FDD comparison on both kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up?
Yes. Actually, the bath tune-up is even worse than the kitchen, because when they started the bath tune-up, Heidi Morrissey herself, she told us that she met with JT, who is the Chief Development Officer of HFC, in a conference. And she asked him, that was in 2019, why wouldn't HFC buy my kitchen tune-up? And he told her, if you have a bath with a kitchen, we might be interested in. So she rushed into creating this bath remodeling business that she didn't have any experience in. Kitchen remodel is a completely different thing than bath remodels. And they just rushed into it, didn't have any experience. She had 2 owners who knows about bath remodels. She just brought them in to help her make the business. These 2 owners, they didn't even have the They were doing it on the side, like an extra job. The main focus was the kitchen remodel. So they didn't run a business to say, okay, I have a proof of concept I'm doing. So the whole system was built on nothing, basically. So when we started, we noticed they didn't have like the suppliers needed. Took us 6 months to get our samples. And they didn't have anybody who knows technical stuff about it. And we had to do all of the learning ourselves, the same thing like kitchen tune-up. But the things we found in the FDD with that was like item 20. There was a lot of misrepresentations and numbers in item 20, showing like, for example, the first year, they were showing that there are 11 units that started in 2021. That was the first year of bath tune-up. 7 of those territories were owned by one person. That person, when we started talking about his locations, we found out that he never operated his business. And they were listing it as an operating unit. That shows some stability and that people are buying a kitchen, the bath tune-up. But in reality, the first year they were showing this 11 units, 7 of them are not operating and they're showing it as operating. Also, there was another owner in Pennsylvania who had 5 territories, and they had one FDD showing him starting in April 1st, 2021. 2 years later, they changed the date to May 2022. So they inflated the numbers of operating units to show stability and growth, while in reality, they didn't have all of those numbers. If we knew then that those numbers were not correct, we wouldn't have joined. And all those findings, it just happened after. We didn't know until we started talking to people to understand what's happening. Because we were seeing how there is a systemic failure. Everybody's not making money, but we didn't know why until we started digging into the reasons for that.
Before you started digging into the reasons why, did you feel like this was your failure? Like maybe you kept doing something wrong?
They make everybody think that way, because I noticed also from talking to owners, whenever you talk to somebody, they would say, yeah, we're doing well. And then until you start saying, we are not doing well, and you tell them the truth, then they start opening up. They play with the psychology, making everybody think that everybody else is doing better. So people, when you start talking to any franchisee, they always try to show positive that things are doing well, because they don't want to say we're the one who's failing. And then all of a sudden you hear somebody's out, somebody bankrupts. And then you start realizing, no, it's not us. It's the whole system doesn't work. All the people I know who left, they left with a complete financial collapse or bankruptcy. I don't know anybody who left the system and they were in a good condition. Why would they leave if they didn't finish the contracts?
How did the franchisor collect the data on your sales enough to calculate your royalties? Was there some sort of system where they knew how much everybody was making?
They actually require everybody to submit their P&L statements every month. So they know all of those minuses are coming into them every month. But they choose to only talk about sales numbers. They never talk about profitability. I don't remember ever hearing Heidi Morrissey talking in any meeting about profitability. She always talks about sales numbers. I've heard it from multiple people. They would say, I got an award. 3 months later, I am almost bankrupt. How can you get an award if you are knowing that you are negative? Because they just look at the numbers, that what they care about. How much sales we made, it means how much money they made. They don't care about profitability. If it was really a partnership, they would have at least looked at the system. I mean, they have a wealth of data. If they are really caring about the franchisees, they would do a study and understand why people are not profitable. Try to do changes. Ask them, how can we make it profitable? Because if we were successful, we were going to help them be more successful. Because if we were successful, more people are going to come and join, and we would be always talking positively. But they didn't care except about their own benefits and how much money they are making. So they always talk about how much revenue, total revenue, but not about profitability.
You mentioned that they collected everybody's P&Ls. Did they share any metrics data, like a compilation of data on franchisee financials with the rest of the system?
They wouldn't show anything about profitability. They would show numbers about sales. They had a system where you plug in your numbers based on the P&L statements, but I don't remember any data showing profitability. So they would pick the parts that they want to show, which is mostly about how much did they sell, what's their margin, the margin just before, like removing only labor and material, not even counting royalties or any overheads.
So, knowing what you know today about franchising, would you buy another franchise today?
Never. The idea that the franchise will give you something, it didn't make any sense right now, especially nowadays with AI. If anybody comes and asks me, I would tell them, hey, you have AI, you can start your business yourself. Anything you want to learn, you will have all the resources available online. You don't need a franchisor. I feel like maybe franchising in the old days was maybe different when it started, but now I see this story repeats in multiple. We had calls from other people, other franchises, like we had calls from people from Rebath, home front brands, same experiences. I don't see any differences. So I don't know how many franchises are still really benefiting from franchisors. But in the home service industry, I don't see any good stories. I mean, with home franchise concept, they have all of these brands, and Concrete Craft collapsed completely out. Advantech Clean, they returned it back to the previous owner after a lot of people are already out, bankrupt. And now I think Bath Tune Up is going the same direction because they had a total of 57 franchises since the beginning. Right now they have only 23, and part of those 23 are in our group. If we are out, it will be only 17. This year they didn't add any Bath Tune Up franchisee so far. So it's in the verge of collapse too. I think it's the next after Concrete Craft.
So now let's talk about your exit. At what point did you realize that you could just no longer continue this?
When we heard about those other owners, we had one of the franchisees who started with us in Minnesota. She started with us in 2021, end of 2021, and she got out in 2023. Another person from the same class, also, he had filed bankruptcy and they sued him for fraudulent bankruptcy. Also, we heard about the person that we did the validation call, that he also filed bankruptcy. That's when we realized this is not going to work out. Of course, you don't hear about those closures until after a while because they just go out silently. You don't hear about it until it's announced or you notice they're not in a conference, for example, or something like that. That's when we told Heidi we want to get out in April 2025.
Your exit email said that you guys were under full financial collapse, but you guys didn't have to file bankruptcy?
We were still paying all the royalties. We never defaulted in any royalty payments or minimum payments for whatever they need. We always paid for our employees. We had to use our own assets. So we used the rental properties. We actually used our own home equity until the last day when they terminated our branch in February 2026. We were still paying them full royalty. We never defaulted in any payments. The only way we survived was because my husband was working and he's a software engineer. Other than that, we would have filed bankruptcy.
When you're talking to the franchisor about your issues and sending these emails and you're really being emotionally vulnerable with them, do you feel like they heard you, that they were listening to what you were saying?
No, because Heidi in her email, she just said, look at the numbers. She pretended that it's not her call. She would say, oh, I have to present it. I have to present it and they have to accept it. While in reality, it was her call. We verified that she is the president. She has the right to accept anybody who's going out because we had the same experience with Tailored Closet and Premier Garage. Actually, it was a completely different experience. We called them. We told them the business is not working for us and we wanted to get out. And they resolved it in that call. It was one call. And they resolved it with us and we signed a mutual agreement and we got out. So when we talked to Heidi, we already have experience with HFC. And it was a completely different way of dealing with it. They didn't try to resolve it. The only thing she was saying, oh, go back to training. Well, training at the beginning didn't work. It's not going to work now.
At that point, you could train everybody else coming in.
Yeah, exactly. So they tried to blame it on the franchisee, but when we sent her the email request to leave, I mentioned all the people I know that left. So I didn't say, "Oh, I'm leaving because of the financial collapse." No, because we know the system is not going to work for us, because we know it doesn't work for other people too. Maybe because we said it that way, she took it defensively and didn't let us out because we're attacking the system that she feels proud about. She keeps saying, "Oh, it's a 35-year system." And in reality, most of those 35 years was not a full continuing model. They were all focusing on tune-up and some rephasing. We had to do the whole thing because there was really no system.
And she knows, like she knew how many franchisees had left, how many people were unhappy. She knows all that. The franchisors, that's what always gets me, is that these franchisors, they have a choice. They could make this exit easy or they can make this exit hard. And time after time, they choose to just make it hard. And why would you want a disgruntled franchisee still in your system, you know, cultivating other disgruntled franchisees? To me, it would seem like if I were a franchisor, I would want to, if I couldn't fix the relationship, I would want to let them exit gracefully.
They kept lowering the offer to us. At the end, they told us pay them $25,000 and waive our rights. At that point, I already know that there is a lot of violation. I wouldn't waive my rights. I said, "No, we don't accept it." And then they came back with another offer saying, "Just leave and sign a waiver." We said, "No, we're not going to leave. Now we're not leaving and we have rights and we want to exercise our rights. We want to get our money back." Then they decided they knew about the YouTube channel because the conference was coming. And I registered for the conference. And that's when they acted. So they used the YouTube channel to terminate. But the main reason was they didn't want us to be in the conference. So they refunded the money I paid for the conference and they declined our RSVP and then they terminated.
So what made you make the decision to go public? Because most franchisees don't. They just choose to quietly deal with it.
Because I noticed it was the pattern, how everybody goes quietly, and that benefits the franchisor. They continue what they're doing. People come, more victims come in. And I felt like we're obligated to let people know, prevent new people from getting into this business. Because a lot of people, and thinking about sale, they try to tell us, "Oh, maybe you should sell." Well, I cannot sell a system I know is not working. I would be liable for it. I wouldn't bring a family and destroy their livelihood just because I want to get out. So it was not an option for us. So we decided to start talking about it publicly. I tried to connect with some journalists at the beginning. I didn't get the responses as fast as I wanted. So I decided I'm just going to go ahead and create a channel and just talk about it.
I love it because there's just so few of us out here trying to inform people coming into this industry. Because the fact of the matter is, most people are just like you when you started out. They don't understand the disclosure document. They don't understand all the items. They don't know how to verify the information that's contained in it. And like you didn't start comparing until you were deep into this franchise and already losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, when we started the channel, I just said, okay, we have the First Amendment protecting we're just talking about our story. Before we started, I sent them an email and I told them, "Is there any clause? I'm a franchisee. I'm still in the system. I have the right to ask you about your contracts. Is there any clause that stops me from talking publicly?" And they would reply, say, "Oh, ask your attorney." I was not represented at the time. I told them, "I'm not asking you a legal question. I'm asking you about your contract. Is there any clause?" Because I looked at the contract, I didn't find any clause that has a dispersion clause and talking publicly. So they didn't give me an answer. So I went ahead, I did my due diligence, asked them, and I'm telling them I'm going to go public. And then I started after that. In their contract, it didn't have a disparaging clause or anything saying you cannot go talk publicly, but they used the goodwill, hurting the goodwill of the brand as an excuse. But in reality, They are the ones who did all of those violations on the FDD. I'm just presenting what they did and talking about our own story.
Yeah, I mean, I find all of your content to be factual and well documented.
Yeah, I try to mention it, everything based on their contract. Like they have, for example, they have some missing litigations, maybe not in our case. But for example, I told you they're running the business as one company, one LLC, kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up. So based on the FTC rules, if there is any lawsuit, it has to be mentioned in both kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up. They would 1 year choose not to mention it in the bath and mention it only in the kitchen. And then another year they decide, okay, let's mention this one in the kitchen and not in the bath. It's like pick and choose. Some people joined the bath, they didn't see any litigation. Well, there was like 4 cases in 2023 in kitchen tune-up that were not mentioned in bath tune-up. That's a big violation. Or there is 2 cases that were filed in 2023. They decided to delay it until 2025 to disclose it, while you have to disclose it the next year after filing. Well, people who signed in 2024 in both kitchen and bath didn't know about those cases. Yeah. And now this year, 2026, they filed a lawsuit against one of our group. It was this time under a collection company. Interestingly, that it did not say HSC versus the franchisee. So it's the collection company versus the franchisee. And now 2026 FDD came in and it's not mentioned there. That's another violation. All of those cases are documented and sent to the FTC.
So the FTC is aware of everything that's been going on with this family of brands.
Yes, any violation we find, they are aware of it. We send them documentation. So it's not just the form that you go online, because the form to file a complaint is just a text. Actually, we have a contact email that we send all the documentations we have. And we believe that the FTC will be coming. I think it will be the next big case after Exponential. So it's just a matter of time.
The other franchisees, how do they feel about you speaking out publicly and being kind of like their voice through all of this?
Everybody who has seen the videos, they agree with what we are saying. I haven't had anybody come to me and say, hey, why are you talking about it? The franchisor is trying to tell the franchisees who are still in the system that I am hurting the brand and they're not going to be able to sell their franchises. In reality, what happened just last week or in June 12th, HFC decided to file arbitration cases against 9 of us. This is what's going to hurt the sales of the existing franchisees. So if they really cared about their franchisees, they wouldn't have filed the cases. We were going to go to arbitration anyway, so it didn't matter to us. They filed first. They dragged this to tell us that we have to go through mediation. We were willing to negotiate through mediation. They kept dragging it until at the end they said, okay, we're going to start with only 3 franchisees. They did the mediation on Wednesday and Thursday, the 10th and 11th of June. Actually, we were supposed to be part of that mediation. Their attorney sent an email saying she does not want us to be in that group, but she want to make sure that we are going to go to mediation, not go right away to arbitration. So we said, okay, let them start with the 3 franchisees that they picked and they agreed on. They did the first 2 mediations. From what we understand, they came into mediation. They were not willing to do any compromise, basically. They didn't come with good faith to do any resolution. And it showed because the next day, on Friday, right away, they filed all of those 9 cases. It means they already have them prepared, even before the mediation took place.
And you said in one of your most recent videos that they changed lawyers recently.
So the mediation up to Thursday, the 11th of June, they were represented with Elizabeth Walden, and she has been their attorney for years. And now all of a sudden, this arbitration filing is a new firm and a new attorney. I don't know if she knew that was her last day representing them to those cases, or she was also surprised with the change too. She did represent them all these years. I think I would say in the past at least 10 years, she was representing them all. They do arbitration too. I don't know why the change, but we think our cases are very strong cases. We have a lot of misrepresentations and allegations against them and all proven from their FTD. We're not even talking about training or support because those are prospective. They can say, yes, we provided training. Nobody can say, oh, this is sufficient training or not, because it's a perspective. They cannot, it's not easy one. But when you have documented claims from their own FTDs, they're really strong cases, all of them. And also because we are a group, it also helps. Yes, we cannot go as a group because of the FTDs. We signed that they cannot do a class action or a group action, but we're represented with one attorney. Still works.
So if there was a prospective franchisee sitting at their kitchen table right now with their laptop open, trying to decide what franchise to buy, what would you tell them about the franchise process from what you've learned so far?
One of the main things is try to connect with former franchisees. If there is any, if you feel it's hard to find former franchisees or the phone numbers doesn't work or the emails doesn't work, that's a red flag. If the franchisors know they have a good system, they would put all the contact information and make it easy for people to connect with former franchisees. Another thing I would say, if the franchisor don't own any location, for me, that's a red flag. Because if you are not believing in your system, you're not going to be owning a branch as a franchisor. But if you believe it, you should have at least multiple branches and show your numbers and that you are profitable. And when they want to do any changes, it has to be showing from their own experience. With the HFC, they didn't own any branch, kitchen tune-up or bath tune-up. I noticed with the Advantech claim when I was searching about it, they owned one branch, one location with Advantech claim, and they closed it within less than 2 years. That shows the system didn't work even for them. And the other thing is there should be some kind of transparency regarding rebates, how much they are really taking from rebates. I don't know if there should be like some kind of legislation that makes it mandated for franchisors to show their numbers exactly how from each vendor, how much are you making? Not just giving a full number, nobody knows where that number came from. Same thing with National Advertisement Fund. I mean, we have been paying into the system for the National Advertisement Fund all along. At the beginning, when we started, the website was saying that they have a comprehensive national and local marketing that brings leads. So they were saying that National Advertisement Fund will bring us leads in their own website. But when you talk to them after the fact, they say, no, we're just for brand awareness. In our 40 years of business, we got 4 leads that materialized to customers. So if I counted, I paid 100,000 into National Advertisement Fund. That's like 25,000 per lead or per customer. The job itself was not a 25,000 job.
Thank you for sharing your story and using your voice to help other people avoid the situation that you found yourself in and sharing your knowledge with everyone. I love your channel, and your LinkedIn page. And I'm super glad that you're doing this and putting yourself out there. It's much needed in this space.
Thank you.